Hey guys, what's going on? David Avalon here with my co-host Robert Drysdale for
What's up?
another episode of Breaking the Guard. If
Episode 59.
I believe, or it might be 58. So one of those two.
One or the other. It's
I
pretty
know it
good.
wasn't
It's
60.
pretty good.
It's been a while. Actually, I looked. It's been 6 months.
Has it been 6 months?
6
I was
months.
gonna say 2 months. Holy shit, really?
Yeah, it's been that
Oh
long.
my
Believe it or
God.
not.
It's when two people, awesome people, are really busy. That's what happens.
What was funny was the last episode was titled Sloth.
Okay, so it's good. It's appropriate.
It was very fitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's
Oh,
no
man.
excuses because we live literally 5 minutes away
Not
from each
even.
other.
Like I
Yeah.
literally, I think I've walked here before. That's how close it is. Yeah, no, man. Like I just been slammed. There's so much going on, and
I've seen you've been traveling quite a bit.
I've been traveling a lot, like seminars, work in general. The thing is, my life in Vegas almost runs itself now. It's on autopilot, which is it took me 14 years to get there, and it comes down to finding the right people. Like Marcelo's been awesome. He puts out the fires even before I hear about them, and that's a rare quality in someone, right? So that's been good. It's freed up my time, so now I can do more. I'm working on that book. I think I told you about it last time. And I've been getting my ass kicked. I think I'm rewriting, but it's the third time I'm rewriting it because it's such a hard thing to organize, man. Open and Close Guard was such an easy book to write because it was just interviews and in between the interviews what I was thinking, right? It's the story of the journey. So it's such an easy book to write in terms of organization. This other one is so much harder. But that's been, so my free time is going there. I'm either researching on it or I'm writing it. And then, yeah, between that and the traveling, I'm busy. But yeah, man, I was just telling you earlier, I gotta start getting back into training more. I kind of slowed down thinking that my injuries are gonna get better when I slow down, and they don't.
No, they don't.
They don't. You gotta push through it, man. I don't know what these doctors are thinking. Take time off. They're wrong. You take time off, it gets worse.
Yeah, that's what I learned from personal experience. You just gotta do whatever you can without pain.
Yeah.
Whatever that is,
Yes. If I find that balance, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm aggravating it,
Yeah. So you don't want to push through the pain because then you're messing it up. Essentially, pain is just a signal letting you know something's wrong there.
Yeah.
I just tweaked my knee yesterday, doing a takedown. I tripped somebody and then I ended up hurting myself afterwards. Small tweak, but now what I do, I just walked for an hour and then I'm lifting weights and doing whatever I can. But it's just it's frustrating getting old.
You know what? I think that I'm no physiologist here, but I'm thinking the blood flow does something for healing. As long as the blood is flowing, so whatever you can do, even if it's on a bike, on a treadmill, I fucking hate the treadmill, but even that is just keeping that blood flow. I'm thinking about doing yoga, because that's yoga is so boring to me. I can't, I'm so bored, man.
I feel the same way.
It's just not, this isn't my issue with things like yoga. It's that I'm on that in between where it's too easy, where I don't feel like I'm getting a workout out of it, but at the same time, it's hard enough to prevent me from relaxing. It's in between. It's in between a workout and relaxing. It's what is this? I feel like I'm getting nothing done here. It's I'm in between. I either gotta be relaxing or I gotta be working super hard. I don't want in between.
It's funny you say that because when I met my wife, she was doing yoga and she's been doing it now 10, 15 years. She does contortion now, but I remember I was at the end of my athletic career, so I'm okay, what is show me some yoga, and I'm same thing. This is really boring. Okay, but it was boring, but not fun, right? Because it was it's still strenuous. I'm is there any passive yoga where I could just get in a good healthy position that stretches, but it's not so taxing?
Yeah.
And there's very limited poses. Pigeon pose and a couple other ones, but I'm oh man, this is hard.
And that's I was fuck. It's just I know it's good for me. I actually feel good afterwards. But here's the thing, jiu-jitsu is really hard on your body in every sense of the word, right?
Yes.
Mentally, physically, your injuries, muscle-wise, cardio-wise. But I'm rewarded at the end. I passed your guard. I'm yes. There's a feeling of accomplishment there that I get excited about that. That's what keeps me going, is the fact that I just beat your guard, right? That's what makes me, makes you want to come back. In yoga, I kind of don't feel that. I feel okay, I stretched a little bit more than I did last time. Maybe, I don't know, I don't get a kick out of that. It doesn't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. So it's hard for me to be motivated because it's just fuck, this is so boring.
Yeah, I prefer just working out over just doing yoga. I've been doing a lot of the knees over toes guy stuff, which is stretching, but it's stretching under load, right? So you're lifting weights or you're doing some type of like um, there's an exercise component to it also. It seems to pass the time easier versus like sitting in a stretch for like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh man, like, I don't know, like especially when you compare, like you said, like martial arts is so engaging in every sense of the word, right? Like physically, mentally, spiritually, like it's got a lot going on, so it's easy to pass time that way. Like it's not difficult to I gotta get myself to train jiu-jitsu. It's like it's fun, right? It's hard to say, how do I not train jiu-jitsu?
And not only that too, like when you how I said this is like the hardest thing for old men. People don't think I'm that old. Like physically, we're old as fuck. Like we're like 65 years old physically. You know that, right? Physically, like mentally.
I don't know about being that old. There's a lot. I would say there's a lot of mileage, but I still see myself as a high performance vehicle.
I know. Good for you. But like it's hard because you go from like being super, athletic and it's just, and then where do you go from there? Because how do you get that excitement? It's like you're talking about a performance vehicle, right? Like you're a Ferrari, and then the next day you're like, what's below a Ferrari, but still kind of fast? Like you're a Mercedes, and then next thing you know, you're a Volkswagen. And next thing you know, you're a Volkswagen Beetle. It's just like you can see, and it's hard to get that same excitement because part of the reason why I loved fighting so much was exactly that. Like it was driving at 1,000 miles an hour. And it's difficult to find excitement in other sports. Like lifting weights has never been fun to me. I do it for health reasons. And because I'm single, pretty much. Like that's the only reason I ever go to the gym. But like I don't enjoy it. I don't think it's fun. I don't think running is fun. I gotta kind of get a kick out running outside. Outdoors can be fun. Nice weather. Or like mountain bike. I used to mountain bike a lot as a kid. Like that was fun. But like it's hard to get excited about working out, because you're not as stimulated in the same way. It's a big step down in terms of stimulation.
Yeah, like now, like I have a pretty good routine going. I walk for like just about an hour every day, and that to me now is my time to reflect.
Yeah.
So I just walk and I just think. I don't have earbuds or anything.
Yeah.
I just think, and I have weird situations going on in my head. Like what if someone tried to stick me up? How I'm gonna, typical male violent fantasy situations I go through. And then I lift 2-3 times a week, train 3-5 times a week, archery once a week, shooting once a week, stretching 6 times a week. Like I have all these things structured and I throw them all in there. But it's like a variety of things. But like the one thing I would want to do more than anything is train martial arts. But that's the one thing I've found that like I have to limit my volume of it. Right? Like I can only handle so much of it.
And you have to learn how to enjoy like rolling for rolling, not trying to win. Because like my wrists are so damaged, Dave. Like I was training yesterday. It's like I'm almost like I can't train because my hand hurts. So I need cortisone. It's the only thing that helps me, like cortisone on my wrist. And I've been avoiding it my whole life, but now I'm gonna start injecting myself every 4 or 5 months just cortisone, because I can't. I get Kimuras on people. I literally have to let go. I put rear naked chokes on people. I'll have them in a rear naked choke, and I'm going, if I finish this, I'm going to be in so much pain over the next like 7-8 days that I just let go. So now I roll without going for submissions. I literally let go of them, and that's like killing, because that was the whole point, was trying to make people tap. It's like, well, this is awful, but I just got to take more care of myself. But anyway. That's more a matter of, it's a new kind of discipline I'm becoming familiar with.
Yeah, so like that's what, in weightlifting, they're very familiar with it. They call it maximum recoverable volume. Right? Like how much physical output can you do that you can still recover from, right? So what I've been learning over the past few years, like I could lift weights every day, no problem. But if I stack something else on top of it strenuous, like for example, martial arts, definitely a problem.
Yeah.
Like there's some people saying, oh, I lift in the morning and train at night, or vice versa. Like I can't do that. Like, I fall apart pretty fast. Even training like twice a day, I can't do that either. Yeah. I tried it once and I was wrecked for like 5-6 days. Yeah. I remember like someone said, oh, do the fighter training. Went, it was like cage wrestling. I did fine. I'm like, okay, I feel a little tight, but not a big deal. Like, oh, we're doing another session in the evening. Showed up at the very last second of the training session. There's literally 1 second left. Someone tried to put me down with a quarter turn lift, landed and rolled my ankle, the knee popped, boom. Like, and it wasn't too bad. But then my face got all scratched up. Back was, it felt like I got hit by a truck. It's just like
Yeah.
total disaster. I'm like, man, I was trying to do 2 a days, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm like, that's why I like look at some of these guys like Glover Teixeira, like
I
how
don't
is
know
he
how they do it, man.
how is he in there? He's like 44,
But
or 42.
here's the
Yeah.
thing, though, too. It all depends on, like, look at Vitor Belfort, right? Like, he has had the longest career in the history of MMA. He started his first fight when he was 16, right? He's like, what, 45 now? When was the last time that he fought? He was like 44, same thing, right? So, like, that's a long career. Like, oh, he's taking steroids. Yeah, steroids help, but they're not miracle performing. It's not like, oh my God, you're for sure. It's like, dude, you have to watch out. You have to take care of your body because steroids will not do that. Like, no amount of HGH is going to make you that healthy, you know? And I think with a guy like Vitor, for example, and I've been in some of his camps, dude, he's really smart about his training, almost to the point where it makes no sense how he trains. Like, there's zero impact in his training, like zero. So it is a matter of how much impact when you were driving that car, how much were you stepping on the gas versus just learning how to drive technically without pushing that threshold every single session, you know? And like a guy like Vitor, he combat role, like let's go to war. I don't think I've ever seen him do it. It was a lot of drilling, a lot of training. And I can't train like that. First of all, because it's boring.
Yeah.
I can never train like that. It's incredibly boring to me. I can't do it. Second, I don't feel like I'm pushing the limits of technical or physical, right? But I think it might be one of those things where a guy like Vitor is so incredibly talented. He's so physically talented that he makes up for that. He knows that when he has to like switch gears, his body will respond, right? With time. You know, like, whereas like I'm not that gifted of an athlete. I have to be on the verge of the limits of the very limits of what my body can perform so I can push that threshold because I can't just switch gears like that and go a notch above. I'll give you another example, like Buchecha. You ever watch that guy grapple? Pay attention to his matches. He's losing all the time. And it's when you think he's got nothing left in the tank. What does he do? Turn the fight around with like 10 seconds left. He does it over and over and over. It's like he's got this extra little, just like when most people will be on their way down. It's like he's got a little more in him. And it's something, and I think a lot of that is not just, because from all accounts, he actually doesn't train that much either. I think Buchecha's got a long career because he's not one of those guys killing himself in the gym every day, from what I hear at least. I train with him only once, but a lot of his training partners are like, no, he actually trains once a day and skips a day here and there. Like, he's not one of those guys. You would think he's in the gym 3 times a day, and he's not. You know, and a lot of guys are like that. And I'm saying that works for everyone, but I think people that, when they're so incredibly gifted, they can not push the threshold every day, and as a result, they're going to have longer careers. Add that to, you know, how you eat, how much you sleep, how much you take care of your body, genetic component, you know, add these things. I think some people can, I mean, Floyd Mayweather, what is he, 45? And he's sharp as hell. Like, holy cow, like, how are you that sharp? Because your reflexes go down like you're supposed to, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure he's in the gym, all that, but like, I think that he has so much, not only a genetic component, but he has so much expertise around him. Like, they kind of groomed him to be exactly who he is. They saw him as a child, they saw the potential, and we're going to watch out this guy, make sure he has as much longevity as possible. Versus like in gymnastics, you know what they do to kids, right? It borders on abuse.
So they chew you in and spit you out.
Oh, chew you in, spit you out. It's exactly what they do. By the time you're 24, you're done.
No, and they're cutthroat as far as like selection.
Oh, it's very good.
Because my wife was a gymnast at one point. She did ballet and all that, and like right away, like she always tells me the story, like her ballerina teacher or whatever saw her and they go, oh, your turnout's very limited. You're never going to be a prima donna. That's it. Boom.
Done.
Right?
Yeah. and it's brutal, man. But like I mean, the nature of competition kind of is that way, you know. And it could be wrong, but I remember I was speaking to a gymnast and he was part of the U.S. team for a minute. He was like way up there. And I was talking about getting my kids into competitive gymnastics. And before I finished my statement, he said, don't do it. And I'm like, man, you were like quoted for the Olympics. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, don't do it. It's bad. Like, he was like straight up advocating against it because I think he saw what it did to his body and what it did to people around him. And it says something about, you know, maybe, you know, lifestyle. Like, what is it worse? Is it worth like pushing that, like, you know, making the candle burn so bright to the point where it runs out like sooner than it should, you know? And I think that's what a lot of these sports do. But at the same time, man, like, had he not been on the national team, would he been as fulfilled? Like, it's hard for me to say, because I destroyed my body in jiu-jitsu, but do I regret it? Hell no. hell, I could be in a wheelchair and I still wouldn't regret it. Me personally,
Yeah.
you know, like I'd still like, no, it was totally worth it. Maybe 20 years from now I'll feel differently. I don't know, you know, but it's a question, man. I think it's not like there's lifestyle is important at the end of the day. Like you have to be able to like live well, not just, you know, have competitive success.
Yeah, I think especially when you talk about like I don't know that much about the world of gymnastics, but at least from my understanding of female gymnastics, your peak is essentially when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Like there's no 30-year-old. I think there was one the last Olympics, and
Yeah.
and that was like a anomaly,
It's
right?
an anomaly, yeah.
But like so it is what you're saying, which is kind of crazy. It's like your peak is going to be when you're still like in your formative years,
Yeah.
just because of I guess your weight to strength ratio or whatnot. It seems like a lot of pressure to put on a child, you know. And then like what's next after that life? It's like essentially the whole life was just for this one moment that's just at the beginning, like of conscious life almost. You know what I mean? Like you're in your first 10 years of being conscious. I don't know. I don't remember anything like before I was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
it's like, man, it seems like a lot of pressure to put on you, and then you don't have like a vision for what's going to be after that.
Yeah,
You know? I like the idea of martial arts. Like, we see it all the time. People who could be in their 60s, 70s, and they're still training to some capacity, right? They're still being part of the sport. It would be harder for me, like if, like I was wheelchair bound. Essentially, like I couldn't participate in the sport anymore after my 20s. You know, you imagine like for whatever reason you just can't do mixed martial arts anymore after 20. Your body just doesn't work, and you have to sit in the sidelines for your next 50 years.
Yeah.
I said, oh man, that's harsh. You know, like I want to be there, you know, the whole time. Like I like teaching, I like training, I like being involved with it. I like having some direction in future athletes or whatnot. So, yeah, that's why I feel like martial arts is also like a lifestyle, like you said. You know, like all the things that we do to stay healthy and to keep our mind sharp, you know. And there's a lot of research going into it. Like I was talking to one of my friends, Alvin, and he's like, "There's the amount of technique that's involved in mixed martial arts is just astounding, right? Like the game is."
I don't think there's any sport as complex as
No,
martial arts. I've said this before, and people like it's always like sounds arrogant when you're saying something like that, but like I can't think of anything, especially MMA.
Yeah.
Like it's like what? Show me something that has more technique. I think chess is simple in comparison. I really do. I think chess is like two-dimensional. It's like a fucking board. Compare to that to an octagon.
Right.
You know.
And you're talking about in chess, you have what, like 5 unique pieces?
Yeah, like, whatever it is. It's
right,
like it's
5 or 6 unique pieces. Yeah. You have a fixed chessboard. You know everything at the start. Yeah. You don't have that in MMA.
You don't.
You don't know what the hell you're dealing with on the other side, what moves he has.
Emotionally, too.
Yeah.
Talk about the emotional control. Like, okay, I'm going to play Kasparov in a game of chess. Or I'm going to fight Francis Ngannou in an MMA fight. I'm like, not the same. I'm sorry. I don't care what people say. Not the same.
Yeah. And in one of them, there's a real possibility that you could be seriously harmed or die. Yeah.
The worst that could happen to chess games, you get humiliated.
Yeah.
In MMA, there's endless possibilities of what could actually happen in terms of like bad, right? No, I think fighting is super complex, and that's why I love it. I love the complex. I think there's a part of my book I mentioned this is like, what is more complex in terms of, you know, emotional, physical, intellectual? Because it is intellectual. You don't think of fighting as something intellectual, but it is.
Sure.
There's how much mental effort goes into strategizing, perfecting technique, perfecting methodology in the gym. Right? There's tons of science going on. We don't think of fighting as scientific, but it is.
Oh yeah.
It is. We just don't think of it that way because science to us is a guy in a lab writing papers no one reads, you know, like, but that's not it. Like there's methodology behind it, right? Like what are the best methods to train someone? We're constantly, I've changed my class methodology. I don't even know how many times. You know, it's just that we don't collect data to actually go like, what are the best kinds of training? Like what we don't do that. We should.
Right, you know, it's kind of what we talked about with the whole Moneyball thing.
Exactly.
For MMA or Jiu-Jitsu, there's just so many more variables that it's hard, like where do you start almost? You know, you have all the different types of body types and frames and heights and weights, and we're not even talking about the skill levels yet.
Oh my God, there's infinite variables. And then I say this a lot in class. My students are probably tired of me saying this, but when we practice jiu-jitsu, right, we have the same rule set. Let's say it's IBJJF, whatever it is. You have the same rule set. It applies from rooster to ultra heavy.
Yeah.
But the techniques that we use for rooster and ultra heavy, it's almost like 2 different sports. even though it's the same rule set. So when we teach jiu-jitsu, we teach it under one roof, right? But when in reality is every weight class has its own game. You watch the rooster, as you go up, you see the game change every weight class. Now, there are similarities, right? But the similarities, if you pay close attention, they're mostly in regard to the rules themselves. You win by submission. You score 2 points when you sweep. But are the submissions the same? No. Are the sweeps the same? No. Are the 2 points being scored here or there? They're never the same. It's completely different. Occasionally, you get the same, right? But it's almost hard to think of a move that consistently takes place, a specific move that consistently takes place in the ultra heavy division and in the rooster division. Think of one. It's hard to think of one. Maybe arm bar,
maybe a half guard squeeze pass or something like that.
You don't see a lot of half guard passing in the rooster division. No, it's because they're so tiny.
I watched. I don't know if you saw that match of Mika Galval and Dante Leon.
Yeah,
that was a crazy.
I didn't see it. I know. I heard it was a good match.
It was. I
can't keep up.
Very good match, but that's an example of guys just inverting and.
But it's and then you see that and it changes dramatically. And of course, you're gonna find something. You're gonna see rear naked choke in both, right? But and this is what's interesting. This is why I've gotten so much criticism for my style of teaching. And it's been such a problem. But I'm right. I'm not budging because I'm not wrong. You guys are going by fashion. I'm going by logic. I am right. Logic always wins at the end. What is the center? I call it the center. What are the techniques that work everywhere? There's only a few of them. Rear naked choke, arm bar, underhooks. Underhooks work everywhere, right? There's a half dozen. There's maybe not a half dozen, but there's maybe 20 techniques, 30 techniques, right? That what we could call the center. Everything that escapes the center becomes marginal. The more so you get this guy right here who loves to invert, right? You have this guy right here, he only wants to do takedowns. Or you get that guy, he loves lapel guard. And you get the guy that he only wants to do heel hooks. And the margins go, Rob, me. And I'm going, that's great. If I were a personal coach, that would make sense that I would emphasize that which you are more apt to do. But because I'm teaching a group of 300 people, I can't do that. I have to focus on what?
Yeah.
The center. The way I describe this to people is if you were taking care of a tree, you wouldn't water the fruit. Would you? What do you water? You water the roots.
Yeah.
That's how the tree grows, right? And if the fruit happens to die, what happens if the tree is healthy?
There's going to be another fruit coming up, yeah.
And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I've always managed to keep if there's never been a moment in my gym where it wasn't a good room. I've had 80cc champions go to my gym and they're going to get a hell of a workout, and I'm not the one training with them.
Yeah.
And they're going to work hard, right? Because there's a constant flow of what new people coming. But the thing is, when you focus on the margins, you lose the center, and the center is 90% of your students, right? So you have to focus as a coach. If you have a big group, if you have individuals, it's different. But if you have a big group, you have to focus on the center. You have to focus on the things that work for everyone. Otherwise, you're ostracizing most of the room. Because if I show a rubber guard, how many people in my room can do it?
Yeah.
How many people can do a berimbolo? I can barely do a berimbolo, and I'm very flexible for my size.
Yeah.
But most people can't. But it's and then people go, why don't you teach more of this? I'm like, why would I? For you? Right? It makes no sense.
No, you get to see, you guys had a bunch of competitions last weekend, and the one thing I saw in common, which is what I know you guys are good with, arm triangle, arm triangle, arm triangle.
Yeah. Because it works for everyone.
Yeah.
It's true. It's I never thought about that. You're right. That's one of the moves. And we do work a lot on that. I just never thought about it.
Right. Marcelo won by arm triangle in his MMA fight. That was a crazy fight too. And then I think it was what is that thing? The smoking show.
High rollers.
High rollers. Yeah. High rollers. Which, by the way, I saw there was a team that was called Comiendo Culo or something like that. I was like, are you serious? Is that really a team that went out there?
Dude, it's a funny show.
But there was a bunch of arm triangles you guys got there.
Yeah, no, it's because we do a lot of arm triangles.
And then this past fight to win, Nick won another arm triangle. Yeah.
Because it's something that it's not a trendy move perhaps, but I don't like. You gotta be careful with trends because, what is the purpose of a trend? Trends. And this is my most recent critique of jiu-jitsu. Actually, I got another book that I'm thinking about writing. And it's a culture critique of what has changed in jiu-jitsu in the last 20 years. And I started having these ideas when I was reading on the history of judo. And I'm thinking, why is judo think about it. Judo's been around for 140 years. Even though wrestling is much older. In fact, wrestling influenced a lot of judo. Even the rule set. most judokas have ever admitted, but it's very similar to a wrestling rule set.
Yeah.
Pin, like that's wrestling.
Yeah.
They didn't invent that. They got it from wrestling. But like wrestling as an organized sport is not that old because it came back after. It was never organized in the Middle Ages, right? Whatever. Like it was something that survived in some circles, but it's not. It's something fairly new in terms of organization. And even so, I don't think it's as widespread as judo. But wrestling would be the closest thing to it. But in terms of like judo, it has a cohesiveness to it, right? It's 140 years old. It's still around. My guess, 140 years from now, I think they're still going to be around. Because in judo, you have, and I think in terms of martial arts, I got like, judokas love me when I call it Brazilian judo instead of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And then they hate me when I say what I'm going to say next. Because like every now and then someone will write me. And then I'll say, but they, in terms of martial arts, they're very flawed. Because they've limited so many, no. The more you limit, the more you say no to someone, the less of a martial art it is. Because a real martial art would mean what? Fucking everything, right? And then they've created so many limitations and it crippled them in a lot of ways. They don't like to hear that, but it's true.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can't do, And then, but in terms of like culture, I think it was brilliant what they've done because they've created a purpose. There is purpose behind judo, and it's not me and it's not you. I think Jigoro Kano, either by accident or by thinking about these things, he reached the conclusion that there has to be, this is what's best for judo. Judo comes first. And everyone that is in judo is working towards that same purpose. So if you're on a ship and everyone's like on the same, like this is what we're doing, right? Like any military guy will tell you this. Like you're better off with an army of 20 people with a purpose than with an army of 1,000 people doing 1,000 different things. Right. Like if I'm a captain, you're a captain, and you go left and I go right, we're gonna hit the iceberg. We're gonna go Titanic. It doesn't matter how big the ship is. You go Titanic, right? There has to be purpose. Like we're all going the same direction. And in judo, there's an agreement of what are their core values. I'm not saying they're perfect. They're always perfect, but there is an agreement that what's best for judo is a means of education. It is a way of improving on the human being, right? They believe that. They have that ethos very ingrained in their culture. And I ask you this now, Dave, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically, what is that unifies jiu-jitsu? What is it that keeps jiu-jitsu together, other than Joe Rogan and fashion? Because it's very fashionable right now. So fashion, but fashion changes. Like I saw my sister wearing bell bottoms the other day. I'm like, wait, what? Those are back? That's jiu-jitsu for you. It's a bell bottom. It's just pants. It's bell bottoms. It's fashion. Pretty soon we're back to like 20 years from now we're back to skinny jeans. Like what is it that keeps jiu-jitsu together other than fashion? And I couldn't think of anything. Like it's hard to think of what is it that keep, like what is our purpose? Okay, so you think about everyone trained jiu-jitsu in the world. Where are we going? What direction are we taking? It's hard to think of something that we all agree on. Because everyone has their own individual purpose.
Yeah. I mean, if you go, again, the trends kind of show a little bit about what people are thinking about as a group, right? Yeah. Like if it's something's trending a lot, like leg locks trended for a while, right? And I don't know. I would always think towards submission, right? That seems to be popular, but that's not always the case, like you said, because Berimbolos became very popular, which is a sweep or reversal, not so much a sweep. So it's hard to say. But I mean, for me at least, as a martial artist, it's about being as efficient as possible, right? So like when we have new moves and people don't know the counters to them, it's very efficient at first, and then as people develop counters, that move wanes in effectiveness. And then it's like, okay, what's the next shiny bauble that I'm going to go after? You know what I mean? Like, what's the next unexplored territory that we can gain maximum efficiency from? Yeah. But I think that's the problem in the sense what you're saying is that that's always changing because something that is unexplored territory, there is initially high value in being there first.
Right?
Yes.
You're a pioneer.
Yeah. And so you're going to know the land, lay of the land better, and you're going to be able to exploit it. But then once everybody settles, now it's like, okay, this is not that cool anymore. Yeah. I need to go out somewhere else to find that next unexplored part. And there's a role for that for like innovators, right? Because that's going to yield, a lot of interest. But going back to you, where you're saying you want to be in the center from a coaching perspective, that has the most value because you know the most about that area, you're able to better teach it to people, right? Yeah. Otherwise, if you're trying to teach stuff you don't know about yet, you're a fraud, right? Like you're like, oh, the next thing is what's it? Oh, leg locks, leg locks. I'm gonna show you everything I know about leg lock, and then you're like Dusty Brown, whatever, this the guy that does the fake disarms and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You're doing.
He's famous now.
Yeah, he's super famous.
He's famous for being. He's infamous, let's say.
Yeah.
Put it like that.
That's why like fame doesn't really have as much value anymore to me, because back in the day when you were famous,
'Cause you were
generally
accomplished.
meant that you did something.
You're a badass
You
at
did
something.
something amazing.
Now
Right?
you
Like,
can be an idiot and be famous.
yeah. So now it's like, well, what are you besides that?
It's a sign of decadence. Yeah, but yeah, but it is what it is. But like, I guess like what I'm thinking here is, in terms of culture, like what is it that keeps everyone together? And this is why you see the group disintegrating all the time, because there's no joint purpose. So if you think of like the Catholic Church, like regardless of what your beliefs are, like how long has the Catholic Church been around? Like, let's say 1800 years.
The historian here.
Like
so
I'm gonna go Counts of Nicaea, yeah, something like 1800 years, right? It's a long fucking time. It's only 2,000 years. They're still around. Yeah. Why? What is it that keeps them together? It's not just Christianity, because you see Christianity, like there's like so many different branches. Like they have a core set of beliefs. The Pope is God's representative on earth, and so and so. And I'm not a Catholic, so I'm not going to go dive into the core beliefs of the Catholic Church. But they have a core set of beliefs that they agree on, right? Let's say you're a Democrat or Republican, right? There's a core set of beliefs that's constantly changing too. But like there is a more or less, let's say you're a communist, right? There's a core set of beliefs that you believe in, and that right there is the cohesion of the group. And if you think of any group that lasts a long time, they have a core set of beliefs that guides the behavior of the group versus the group taking advantage of that particular belief to benefit themselves, right? So for example, if I use jiu-jitsu to what's best for me and maximize money and ticket sales right now, that short term will benefit me, but the group suffers in the long term, because it's not necessarily it may be coincidentally, right, best with the group, but that is a secondary force. The primary force is what is best for me, and as a result the group suffers. But if you look at things that last a long time, they have a cohesiveness to this, where the group goes, what is best for the group, right? And what's best for the group is what guides the behavior of the individual. And if the individual happens to benefit, that is the secondary force. The primary force, the guiding force, is always what is best for that core belief system. In this case, whatever the Catholic Church core belief systems have to be, like your political party, judo, right? And this is where I'm looking, where IBJJF failed miserably. And I'm a supporter of IBJJF. I think if jiu-jitsu is to survive another 50 years, it's because of like what they're logistically, at least they've created something very cohesive. But in terms of values, I mentioned this to them before, it's like, you guys don't have one. Like judo has like a core belief system. They have rules, man. Like they have like the culture to shape the culture. Jiu-jitsu has
that's really like ethical values and stuff.
All
like
of it,
that.
yes. So like, what is it? What is the purpose of judo? Like they don't answer you. Like there's a list of things. Like they things that they uphold as judokas, right? And they may be perfect or imperfect, but it's at least the ship is going in one direction or the other. And everyone agrees on what the direction is. Jiu-jitsu, there's none of that. Find me something. It's just okay. We got tournaments. They're organized, medals are beautiful. Technically, badass, never been better. But there's more to that, because technique itself alone is not enough. Because if it were, catch wrestling would have taken off 100 years ago. Why didn't it? Because the techniques are not different. What's different between ADCC and catch wrestling?
I don't know enough about catch wrestling.
No, it's the same shit. It's just techniques got better. They got more sophisticated. But it's like catch wrestling did it first. I mean, catch wrestling is older than everything. You're going to get to it. Like, as far as submission-wise, it's older than jiu-jitsu. It's older. It precedes it. It's the old, like, why? Because I think this is why they never, is that I don't think they have that core set of beliefs that an organization like the Kodokan created for judo.
Well, I guess in response to that, what it seems like, for example, when I think of jiu-jitsu or like MMA, they're sports.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas judo is a sport, but it's also a martial art.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's for them, it's a way of life.
Yes, it's a way of life, yeah.
Whereas there's a lot of people that says that they like to say martial art lifestyle, and that sounds like cool. Like, oh, martial art lifestyle, that means I travel and I train and whatever, do all this stuff. But it doesn't really come with what you're saying, like moral values or like, how you would respond to certain situations or your life beliefs and whatnot. So that seems to be separated, But like, if you look at all of our major sports, they all don't have that either. There's no like values systems in baseball or football or anything like that. And these are big
They're
sports,
massive
and they're
sports, yeah.
massive, but they don't have that type of unity, which I'm not sure from a marketing perspective is beneficial or not. But I would definitely think from a culture perspective, like you're saying, it would be, because you could be instilling some good values into people, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what drew people into the martial arts in the
Yeah.
first place. After watching like movies like the Karate Kid and stuff,
Yeah.
they had this thing. Oh, like it teaches them control and discipline, self-respect, and all that. And that's how they got people start moving into the martial arts in the West. You know what I mean? But jiu-jitsu seems to be very modern in the sense like, oh, it's like we prove things by doing them. You know what I mean? Like essentially from the little I know, you're the historian here, but the Gracie challenges and all that was pretty much taking the theory out, right? It's like let's be empirical. Let's see who's better.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And that was the brilliance of it. It's like
Right.
they cut out the bullshit and like let's put it to the test, you know.
But that didn't come with the life philosophy.
No, they didn't have one.
It was just a hammer.
And then when Carlos Gracie tried to write one, it just it didn't stick because I think part of it probably the Brazilian culture was something to blame with this. I think the surf culture had taken over by then. Secondly, like Carlos's teachings were not on par with his life. Like, like if you're gonna be a Mahatma Gandhi, you're gonna fucking have to live like Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
And Carlos didn't. Like Carlos had a certain lifestyle. And then at the end there, he had like his 12 rules of life or whatever it was, and they're beautiful. They're like, those are good values. But like, it had nothing to do with the history of jiu-jitsu. They were good values, right? And they were not instilled. They were not taught. I learned about them much later. I never heard of them when I was coming up in jiu-jitsu. And maybe they would have been better had those been instilled early on and like been part of the IBJJF belief system. But it was so at odds with everything else. It kind of never really, I don't know. Like it just didn't take off. But you make a good point about professional sports. Like professional sports, they are incredibly profitable. I do have my doubts if it's something like, if you like, for example, boxing went on a very different route than judo.
Yeah.
Boxing was about ticket sales, right? But let's say boxing and judo can be polar opposite, in some ways. But boxing, how many lives has boxing changed? Like, I mean, how many people train boxing at, I've been kickboxing. Okay, they're cardio kickboxing. I'm not even sure that counts. What is that? I don't even know what that is.
No.
It's like, it's boxing. It's like, yeah, you're punching. I guess it is,
But what you make is another good point there. Whereas even those sports like, NBA, NFL, boxing, they are huge money sports.
Big businesses.
Millions of spectators, but not high participation sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Or UFC, yeah.
Or even, at least UFC now, MMA gyms are starting to rise. There's more people. I guess we would have to look at stats because I'm just talking out my ass here. But like, how many people practice martial arts versus, play football on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Not like, I played because I'm in high school and they make me, right? Like, so I would tend to think there's probably more people doing martial arts, recreationally than they are playing football or baseball because, like one, it's prohibitive as far as equipment wise, and like you need a stadium and you need all the pads and stuff like that. So like not just anybody can do that. Like it requires a good amount of infrastructure. Boxing though could, but then again, how many people are going to their local boxing gym and actually boxing it up?
Yeah.
So I think that's one edge that martial arts has is that it kind of caters to the common man, right? Like it's not just like you have to be an exceptional athlete.
Yeah.
I think what some people get dissuaded by, like particularly with mixed martial arts, that they think, I'm gonna get beat up and stuff like that. And like, no, unless you're training at a knucklehead gym, anybody can train in mixed martial arts to a certain degree and still learn practical skills. So it's where like sports are geared towards top echelon athletes. Martial arts is geared for everybody. Right? Like anybody could do martial arts. You won't be a UFC champion, but you still can practice it.
Yeah.
I can't get my grandmother to start playing in the NFL.
No.
Or even playing football, period.
It's not for the masses. At the end of the day, like, I'm not saying that, I guess this is a conflict of values here. You have, and we see this in jiu-jitsu, we're seeing this very clear now. You have one side going ticket sales as the purpose, like ticket sales. That's what they're looking at. you know, and then the other side is like, okay, let's what else can jiu-jitsu do for us? And it's kind of like this organization, but there's no value orientation in the grand scheme of things like judo has, for example. And those are different approaches. I know what I prefer. I'm not saying like which one is better than the other. But like I see like the ticket sale thing to me is like something you got to be careful with, because not everything that sells is good.
Right. Sure.
You know, like for example, if you put Hasbulla, you know, the little Russian, okay,
yeah.
Hasbulla. Let's say Hasbulla or get into an MMA fight with Paris Hilton. Right?
I just got the visual. That's it.
Okay, let's say we could make that happen. Okay, and I'm the referee and promoter. I love to promote that fight. How many tickets do you think we'd sell?
It'd be a fortune.
More than McGregor and Khabib.
For sure.
Is that good for the sport of MMA in the long run? Or is that banalizing the sport of MMA and making it into a circus, which is kind of what we're doing? We're on the way. That's kind of where we're going.
Yeah.
We're going to banalize it. And you banalize it, it's not serious anymore. It becomes a joke. And then we go back to pro wrestling, which is kind of like a cyclical thing with martial arts. Like we kind of do like full circle. Like there's a reason why pro wrestling has lingered so long. It's like if people enjoy that, it does sell tickets. But it's like, dude, from that to like, how did catch wrestling, like how did they go there and not where they should have been? Because they did it first, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm critical. I think that like, yeah, ticket sales are good, but as a secondary force.
Yeah, I mean, like we look at now. I don't know. You saw that's when you mentioned Joe Rogan. ADCC just got sponsored by Joe Rogan. So I guess there's.
What does that mean? I don't know. Like, the guy's gonna give money.
The Joe Rogan Experience. So the podcast is sponsoring both Gordon Ryan as the individual athlete, and he's also sponsoring the whole event.
As in, like, giving him money? Or?
Yeah, money, marketing. I'm not sure exactly what the financial details are, but I'm assuming they're paying some money. I mean, for him, it's probably a good move because anybody who does martial arts already loves Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And if they weren't familiar with him yet somehow, like they are going to be afterwards.
Yeah.
And like this recent.
Well, to draw eyes on ADCC for sure.
Yeah.
You know, a new audience.
Yeah, and from all accounts, ADCC now is, you know, have their biggest attendance coming up here in Vegas.
I will say this about the attendance thing. I know they mentioned the last one had the biggest attendance, and I'm like, I don't think it did. Because I remember I was in Brazil in 2003, and I don't know the numbers, but I remember seeing the Ibirapuera, which is a big fucking arena full. I think they had more people in Brazil. I don't know the numbers. I could be wrong. But at least it was close. Because, like, even this last one, it wasn't full. It was a much, much smaller arena than Ibirapuera. Ibirapuera is where they have like all the professional volleyball, basketball games. It's a freaking big arena. It's like at least 4 times the size of the arena they had in California. I don't know numbers, but it wasn't. It was. I remember during like it was almost full, and like this one was not full. With that being said, I know that in Vegas, I'm pretty confident they're going to sell out if they haven't already.
Yeah,
like they've hyped it up so much that it's going to sell. But again, like I'm all in favor of ticket sales as long as you don't banalize the sport and you don't make it into, you don't let it become pro wrestling. Because that to me is damaging in the long run. Short run, yeah, sure, you'll Paris Hilton and Hasbulla would make you a shit ton of money, you know. But long term, I think it'd be like shitting on the sport, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of funny stuff going on promotion wise. Like, I would be remiss if we don't talk about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, right?
That would sell. Holy shit, that would make a killing.
I thought it was funny. There's a few of these events where people were calling like man code stuff, like what was it, like Masvidal, you know, sneak attacking Colby Covington, you know, like a lot of these things to me like rubbed me the wrong way.
I think they're staged.
They could be staged.
Yeah.
I don't
know how much money they make. Well, you know how much money they're going to make.
Well, the Will Smith Chris Rock thing could be, and what I told people, which is the truth, is like, look, this dude just won the award for Best Actor. Yeah. You don't think he could have faked this whole thing?
Yeah,
cried and stuff like that?
You know what's going to happen to Chris Rock's next stand-up comedy?
No, he already...
There we go.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen to Will Smith's next movie?
Yeah. Chris Rock, the very next day or two, they said that his tour has already
sold out.
Exploded. Yeah, and the minimum ticket prices went from $40 to $340.
So the way the Hollywood, and I'm never been in that world, but I know a little bit about it, right? Is you have to remain what they call relevant.
Yeah.
And for that, anything goes. I think I can't prove any of this, but I think when McGregor throws a trolley at the bus, that's staged. I think when he punches someone at the bar, that's staged because he has a legal team that he knows perfectly well. They can set. He's a fucking almost billionaire at this point. Like, there's nothing these guys can't do. They're untouchable. The only thing that could happen to them financially, that could hurt them financially, is them not being in the press. So for you to be in the press, if you can't beat Floyd Mayweather in a fight, if you can't achieve great things in the UFC, right? Because technically you can't beat the best guy in the division, right? So what do you do to remain relevant? To keep making money? Well, you do crazy shit. You slap Chris Rock on national television because that right there, I mean, how many memes were created? How many times have their names been Googled in the last like 48 hours because of it, right? So now they're just like, everything about them. They made so much money from that. And you don't think there's a PR team? This is when Elon Musk throws a rock at a car and the window breaks. You don't think Tesla prepared for that? They knew that he was gonna. They're that. I am smart enough to prove, and I'm like far from like one person to think ahead. I never do. I would have like, well, you guys are gonna throw a rock at the car. Probably should check if the window's gonna break or not. You don't think Tesla thought about that with all the PR people they have? But he throws that. What happens? Window breaks. It doesn't mean the car's a piece of crap. Because everyone knows, they're gonna fix that next time. But what it does mean is that video is gonna get so many more views because of something outlandish like that. And it blows the fuck up, and now everyone sees the new car. But like PR agents, they understand how the human mind works. They're called attention engineers. Their whole purpose in life is understanding how to catch your attention, right? And a car accident catches attention. A house on fire catches attention more than anything good does. Like anything that's bad is going to sell more than what's good.
Oh, of course.
And at the end of the day, man, it's about sales. It's a business. They're trying to sell, and they're going to do anything to draw attention. Even like crazy. I mean, to me, I think I mentioned this in one of the previous podcasts. You know what they do in ancient Greece? Because that's going. There's a chapter in the book about this. You know what they do? They would set buildings on fire. You know why? To become famous. They commit murder. You know why?
Famous.
Become famous. And they would do that, and that was like, that's the period of decay. That's what the beginning of the end right there, right? It's like they peaked, and then they're going down because what had been a side effect of something truly great, high achievements, being famous for doing something incredible, now is, it's been banalized. Now it's famous for being famous. So anything goes, right? So you can get famous for sucking dick online, and that right there makes you look how much money Kim Kardashian made from that, right? What's the achievement? Fellatio? Like, well, congratulations. Like, like what? But that is the achievement, right? But it doesn't matter because at the end, you make a shit ton of money. That's acceptable. We've normalized that. Well, now here we are, It's like, you see it everywhere. It's just like, man, it's just downhill. It's just downhill.
Yeah, it's truly crazy.
Where does it stop? It's like, there's there a breaking point, because, I was just having this conversation with someone the other day, and everyone says there's always the old man chastising the young generation. That's the oldest thing, right? Oh, these generation X, Z, Y, whatever the hell they are, like, you're the worst generation. And I catch myself talking like that all the time. Because compared to them, I'm tough. Even though compared to my grandfather, I'm a pussy. My grandfather's way tougher than me. Like, way tougher. Like, I'm so weak compared to my grandfather. Your grandfather worked way harder than you ever did. He probably killed himself doing it. It was so much harder back then, Dave. Yeah. Let's be frank. Life was so much harder. It's gotten easier. Technology has remedied so many of our problems. Things that were struggles in the past are now remedied by what? Automation, right? But with that being said, like, okay, that's an old theme. Sure, that theme is as old as humans. Is there a breaking point? Is the question.
Well, I feel like getting to what you were saying is true. Life in the past was much harder, and modern tools like technology have made life easier. But I guess, especially when we look at today's culture, is that to a detriment to humans, right? Because like, it feels like people have gotten soft.
Yeah,
right?
and sad as a result.
Right, and sad because all that hard work had value to it.
Yeah,
and now
there's no value.
Now there's people who literally refuse to work. Like, we've been trying to hire someone in my gym in Miami for like months. Nobody wants to work. Do it. So, and it's frustrating, But all that, it's kind of like where my dad used to say this all the time. Probably still what does, but he feels like humanity's purpose was essentially to bring forth the next evolution of life form, which would be like technology, right? Essentially, when we have AI or something, we're just going to be like the predecessors that get left in the dust, because we're making that stronger, but we're not making ourselves stronger.
No.
Like, I don't think, like, as smart as people think they are now, what they are perhaps is more knowledgeable, but not necessarily smarter. And you're only knowledgeable because you're standing on
shoulders of
giants. But people who were smart because they were able to come up with these things, like the people who make the cameras and the microphones, they're way smarter and all that. They're very smart people. Me using it doesn't make me smart.
But
it just
makes them smart. People say you're right. Like,
I
have an iPhone. I'm smart. No, you're not. Egyptians built pyramids. That's smart. You know? Think about it.
What someone said to us, funny, was that you can only say something is smart by comparison. Right. So, like, when they say you have a smartphone, it's implying the phone's smart.
Smart, yeah. No, you're 100% right. And like, just one thing, like, people have access to knowledge. I don't think people are more knowledgeable. I think we've never read less. I think I've seen numbers on this. Like, we're reading less and less. I'm always, like, careful. Like, I speculate so much. I'm trying to, like, train myself not to speculate so much. But so I haven't seen numbers. But I'd be willing to put money that we'd read less than we did 50 years ago. And as a result, and like, it's just like people go, why read? You got Google. I'm like, oh my God. So it's like that. It's thinking. It's like, why work out? You can just put a filter. It's the same. That's what I hear when people tell me that you don't need to read because you can Google it or go on YouTube and watch a YouTube video, and that's the equivalent. Or TikTok. I had an adult argue with me that I didn't have to read academic articles on the Ukraine because I could just go on TikTok instead. 55-year-old man was arguing with me, and I'm like, just imagine what his grandchildren are gonna be like. It's just like, oh my, where are we? But what I hear is like, why go to the gym if you can just put a filter on that puts abs and muscles on you? That's what I'm hearing. Fake it. Don't have to be, and we have normalized fake. We have normalized. Authentic is asocial. It is antisocial. It is weird. It is strange, right? Being a phony is normalized. I'm a phony. You're a phony. I know that you're a phony. You know that I'm a phony. We both know that we're phonies, but we both agree that being phony is normal, so it's okay. We've normalized it.
Yeah, we're normalizing lots of really strange things.
Oh man, don't get me started on strange things we're normalizing. Like, we're so detached from reality. And I'm going, it's because, and I this is part of my book that I talk about this, is like, it's my issue with the idea of like, even democratic thinking in some ways has been so detrimental, because we have believed that if the majority of people believe something, then it's true. Like, well, slow your horses, calm down. If the majority of people, 500 years ago, the majority of the human population believed the earth was flat. Was it?
Yeah.
Now, most people believe the earth is a sphere. Or not believe, understand the world is a sphere. In certain circles, the earth is back to being flat. If reality were subjected to the opinion of the majority, then the earth would be reshaping itself from flat to sphere back and forth. And that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, does it? But there are people that not only believe that, they live by those standards. The reality is what the majority wants it to be. And this is where, like, it poses like the limits of democracy. It was like, no. Democracy meant you had a voice. You could choose who you wanted to elect. It meant that the opinion of everyone mattered to an extent. But at the same time, you have to put limits on that, because not everyone is a doctor. Not everyone is a jiu-jitsu black belt. Not everyone is, like, I have no idea how that camera works.
Yeah.
I know how to press record.
Yeah.
You understand? It doesn't make me an expert. But people, there's no more rank in the world. Like, we've dissolved rank. I think there's, like, in some ways, like, some of the backlash we're watching in cultural terms is like, it's been the at the end of World War II, words like discipline, rank, order were associated with what? With fascism, right? Discipline, rank, strength, order, right? And we have come to think of fascism as bad, which it is. I'm not saying that, but the values that come with it are also bad, because fascism is bad. So equality, victimization, weakness. The opposite of that is good, right? I'm still on the Nietzsche high. That's why I'm like, he talks about this nonstop. But we've created society. We have turned victimhood into a glorious stance, right? Victimhood is good. If you're a victim, because when you're a victim, how can I criticize you? You're immune to criticism. You can do anything you want.
Yeah.
So reality doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. Don't fucking matter. I'm the victim, victimizer. End of story. So everyone's, oh, can I be a victim too? Like everyone wants to be a victim. Whereas like 50 years ago, if you cried in school, I'd be like, what the fuck are you crying for? Like what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, let him cry. I'm like, well, okay, did mom die? No. Did the dog die? No. Did something horrific happen? No. Why the hell are you crying then? And you would say something like, man up. And that was like, and the kid was like, yes, I shouldn't be crying about nothing. Cry for real reasons. Like something, I don't think crying itself is bad. Being weak is bad. It's fine to show emotion, but for good reasons.
Yeah.
But we've normalized, oh, I need a safe space. Safe space. You live in the richest country in history.
Yeah.
You are the privileged 99.999% of human history and human existence has way harder than you have it. And somehow I have to listen to people talking about privilege. And I need a safe space to cry. And these people make me sick in the stomach because they're so diseased in the head. They're so incredibly weak, Dave. Like, it's just like, you are the problem. But we've normalized it. And that's the norm, right? And if someone puts a soundbite of what I just said, I'd probably get 100 negative Google reviews. You know, I might have to edit that out. But, you know, it's kind of where we're going, man. Like, we don't see values of strength as good anymore. And they used to be good. These are good values.
Yeah.
It's good to, like, you know, shit happens. You're like, all right, man, you know, like, tough it out. It's like, oh, throw yourself on the ground and cry. You know, and like we praise that. Oh my God, here's everything you need because,
yeah,
you know, and it's become normal. And it's just, I mean, I wonder if there's a breaking point. I mean, at some point there has to be. Yeah.
I would think so because like imagine if you have all these same people who are so fragile, and then they inherit the earth. It's like,
yeah,
how are they gonna?
And they're entitled to it too. It's like not only that, they think they deserve more.
Yeah.
Like I was watching a video the other day, and I was like, this is like how crazy this world's gone. Logan Paul, the YouTuber, was given advice on economics. The equation goes, he has more money than me, therefore, he knows more about investing than I do. Logan Paul and Gary Vee, they're giving advice on economics. I'm like, it is mind-boggling in a world where like we have plenty of PhDs in economics, right? Plenty of smart people out there. Like, for example, a guy like Warren Buffett gives you advice in economics. I'm inclined to listen. I'm careful, like, well, is he trying to trick me into buying something he's selling? That's the first thought process, right? But you're inclined to believe in someone who actually build his wealth, right?
I would go with Nancy Pelosi.
Okay, I don't even know who that is. Like, I can't. I know she's a politician, but I don't know anything about her.
She's apparently the best investor in history.
Okay, whatever. But like,
Warren Buffett has a 20% rate of return, which is phenomenal.
Phenomenal, yeah.
Nancy has 60.
Does she really? Or she says she does?
No, she does.
Okay, that's incredible. But like, but let's say Logan Paul did, you know, got lucky with whatever the hell he's doing. That doesn't make, but like people that you have a young generation that they're looking at that and they're going, this is my reference, right? And they're being played too because these guys they're telling you to buy what they're selling. Like, pay attention.
Yeah.
You know, they're being played. And then the other one was retire when you're 21. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, and the people are believing that. I had a student of mine argue with me the other day, Dave. He's like, he's got this Bitcoin that's going to take off, this cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, it's going to take off. He's like, no, Rob, I've done the math. I'm going to have $20 million if it goes to $1. And it's just a matter of time. And here's why: the halfling curve or something like that, something like that.
The halving
curve. And I'm like, and that right there is evidence that you're going to have 20 millions in a few years. Like, yeah, and he was so confident about it, so confident. And I'm listening. I'm like, what the? I was like, am I crazy? Or the world's gone crazy? Which one is it?
Maybe that's why nobody wants to work. They've already got the
of
crypto.
Course.
They're just waiting.
I was just going to say, this is why you can't hire someone in Miami. It's like, whoa, $15 an hour. Wait a second here, man. I am an entrepreneur. I am investing in crypto. And like, they believe that shit though.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that's not, well, they haven't said the reason crypto, but like, there's people like, oh, we need somebody essentially to like clean the gym. And it's like $25 an hour minimum, and I need at least a like 20-hour work week. I was like, it's like a 7,000 square foot gym. Like, it's not that much cleaning to be done. And like 25,000, that's like if that was full time, that's like 50 grand a year.
Dude,
it seems like, man, like everything's going, like the inflation crap is going out of control. Like back in the day, like, man, like $15 an hour was like, that was a good starting job.
Dude, I think my first job paid $7.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, you know, I mean, I know it was a while ago, but still, it's like, but what's changed is not like, yeah, sure, inflation, you know, economy has changed. I get all that. But what's changed is a sense of entitlement. That is, I think that's what's so abnormal, but it's been normalized as well. We have come to see it as normal. Um, a last tangent, I promise,
Yeah.
but this is super relevant. So, because I'm writing this book, I sent a copy to a draft, early draft to someone,
Okay.
to a friend, and then he sent me back some ideas, some suggestions on what to write. And there's this, I don't know a lot about it, but I've done some reading on it, so this is kind of where we're going. Like in the 1980s in California, there was a movement called the self-esteem movement,
Okay.
or I think that's what they called it. But basically, a group of psychologists, they got together and they didn't have any empirical evidence for any of this, but they had a hypothesis that if we increase the self-esteem of children, good results would follow. So if we make you feel like you're a champ, that you're awesome, that you're incredible, you're gonna feel so good about yourself, Dave. You're gonna get straight A's. And everyone went, yeah, that's a great idea. You know, in other words, reward people prior to them doing work. And that's more or less, you probably remember this when people started getting trophies for not winning.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember this spread like wildfire, because in Brazil, I remember like it was like early 90s maybe when this happened. You know, if you had bad grades, you have to repeat the grade. You have to go back to be, you know, so basically you said you had kids who were bad students and they have to repeat the same grade like
Yeah.
over and over and over. If you went to night school, it meant you were such a bad student.
Yeah.
You got so much older than the other kids, they sent you to night school to catch up, right? Because, you know, you had to repeat a grade. And I remember when it changed, it was like, oh, there's no more repeating grades. You can just be an awful student. They're going to move you forward. No one left behind sort of thing. And I remember my friends that were awful students going, fuck yeah. They were so happy because like they were being penalized for being awful students and they dreaded that. But now they weren't, right? So this movement spread like wildfire. So the school system, they all like, yeah, that's a great idea. And like, you know, at some point, you know, these guys went and came along and go, actually, it's not working. This is an awful idea. But at that point, it was too late.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing now, to some degree at least, is backlash from that lack of thinking. They thought that by rewarding kids first and making them feel special and not letting them handle any hardship and like nothing bad happens to them and they're like little glass, little sensitive things are going to break, that in the future they're going to be better human beings. And it's normally the opposite, right? First you work your ass off, you work hard, and then you get a little reward. And that right there pushes you to excel. So excelling is a product of work, not a product of being.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I just read something about that today. About they framed it differently. They talked about the fad of positive affirmations
Yeah.
falling short. And same thing statistically,
Yeah,
it showed that it was an inverse correlated. Like people who had to work their way through, then get the praise versus getting praise first.
Oh, yeah.
Or working, or just all because you believe something doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna happen. You know,
Yeah.
like you have to put the work in. But like if you believe you already have achieved everything, then why are you gonna work?
Yeah.
Right? Or like you said that you might get to entitlement.
Yeah.
You believe you're so good, like, well, I deserve more.
Of course. I'm awesome.
Yeah, like
And-
just give me, give me.
And I think it's affecting even like as a single man in the dating universe. I see that too. Maybe men too. I don't know. I'm on the other side, but women for sure. You get these women. Their self-esteem is through the roof, right? Because they're pretty and they got a ton of likes on their Instagram, so they're clearly I'm high value.
Yeah.
So I go on a date with them, right? And I'm like, oh, she's hot, I'm like, right? So I want to meet her. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to her. I'm going, okay. And then she's really hot. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, yeah, she's really hot. And I'm going, okay. It's like now I'm trying to let's try to crank the volume up, but let's switch gears, you know?
Yeah.
There's nothing there. And I'm thinking to myself, if you, by magic, could remove her vagina and it just disappeared, no vagina, right? She has no looks, right?
Right.
What's left? And I'm not saying they're all like that, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
but
yeah, of course.
it is a thing. It's become because their sense of self-esteem is so incredibly high. They think so highly of themselves. They never bother learning how to do anything, right? Like they think so highly of themselves. They never bother learning. Why would I learn how to do anything?
Yeah.
Why? Like I'm the shit. Look, I got 5,000 likes. Clearly, I'm the shit, right? And they believe that. And as a result, they think they're waiting for Brad Pitt. Well, I'm not Brad Pitt. I'm not going to be Brad Pitt, right? So I'm thinking, well, what are you going to, and they're looking at me like, what are you going to do for me? Like, what are you going to offer me in exchange? And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not Brad Pitt, but I got more value than you. I got a career. I own a business. I actually know how to do things, you know? Like, so it's like this dissonance that I think is affecting dating in a lot of ways too, because women think so highly of themselves. And you guys, maybe guys do too. I'm not on the other side, so I don't know, but it's this like, but before it's like, you know what, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, you know what? We'll figure it out. Like, where now it's like everyone's waiting for like, the Prince Charming on the other side. That's going to be this absolutely perfect guy with tons of money to take care of him. But they have nothing to offer on the other side. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with you? Feed you? Yeah. Like, just a mouth to feed? Like, okay, I got a vagina. Congratulations. What else you got to offer? Because if we have nothing else, like, why would you want to be with them?
I think that, in a sense, makes it easier to filter out, though, because you can kind of spot these type of people.
Yeah.
And that's definitely on both sides. But you can definitely spot those type of people and know, okay, or as they do in the apps, I guess, swipe left or whatever the way you go.
Yeah.
Like,
I get like, what do you call that when your fingers like shaking from the same repetitive movement? So I switched fingers now, like just with my pinky, with my other thumb. So using my elbow. I'm just joking. I ran out of people a long time ago to swipe on. I've swiped to the whole town.
I'm glad I'm not in this era.
I've swiped to the whole town multiple times.
I'm glad I'm not in this era for dating. But I think in general, like, you gotta filter those type of people out. Just even like, I don't know, like when I met my wife, it was online also, but it was I don't think Match.com or something like that. But I remember, like, when I went to do it, I'm like, I'm gonna be as stingy as possible. Yeah. Like, I want someone who's highly educated, intellectual, pretty, got a good sense of humor and all that. And she was the only one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You got lucky, man.
Yeah, I got lucky because I remember, and it's funny because she said the same thing from her end. Like, I think it was like a 3-month thing or whatever. I'm like, no.
But she can back it up. She's a professional. Like, she has a PhD, right? Like,
she's a doctor. Yeah,
she's a doctor. Okay. Like, but you get like, okay, so you have all these qualities, but you can back up your self-esteem with qualities, is my point, right? But when that sense of, and this goes back to what we were talking about, the sense of entitlement that we've created, right? Like, people think so highly of themselves, but there's nothing there. It's like, why do you think so high? Because if I sucked at jiu-jitsu, and I think I see this in jiu-jitsu too now, you get these kids, like, they don't even train. They take 3rd place at Naga, but they behave as if they were world champions. Like, you get people, I see blue belts with logos. They have their own logo now. They're blue belts. Like, back in the day, if you were a blue belt, you created your own logo, you get beat up. People like get the hell out. You know what I'm saying? Like, people make fun of you. But the sense of self-esteem is so high. Everyone thinks so highly of themselves. Fake it till you make it sort of thinking, right? And that kind of like became the ethos of the age. It's like, fake it till you make it. Everyone's a fake, right? But no one's making anything. Like, if you're going to be fake it, but then do something to back it up at least. If you're going to reverse the process, if you're going to fake first and then accomplish second, at least accomplish something. Yeah. Because in my head, first you do something and then you actually are something, right? But like, we've kind of reversed that because maybe it's easier, it's a faster way to make money, whatever the case. But dude, like, it's something so ingrained in the culture, Dave, and it's everywhere. It's in dating. I see it in jiu-jitsu. I see it in the fight. I see it all the time, man. Kids, like, schooling, and it's not just kids, adults too, man. Like TikTok, case in point. Like, you don't have to read on the Ukraine. Watch TikTok.
This is the problem with technology also. I feel like, for example, the internet, greatest advance in information technology that's...
Incredible. It's going to go down like the wheel. It's going to be next to the wheel and the printing press. Right. It's one of the greatest inventions in history.
To be able to access information has never been easier. The only problem is you can't know any of the information is valid or not. Because anybody can publish. Right, like, if I want to make a website on like how South African mules are, like,
you can,
whatever, I could, right? Like,
it's the abuse of free speech. Yeah.
I think it was actually the old time Stephen Colbert bit where he went on Wikipedia and he had someone write in that elephant populations were skyrocketing in Africa, because of the end of a drought or something like that, and it was an obvious joke, right? And it turned out like people started believing that, but oddly enough, 10 years later, it became true. He's like, you see, I said it was true, and then it became truth. Yeah. That's what truth is. But he was being his character. He was being funny. But
and who's that again?
Stephen Colbert.
Okay, yeah.
Right. But that can happen, and it does happen all the time. Like, especially if you're looking online, you see, oh, so-and-so said this. I'm like, did he though? And then if you dig in, no, he didn't say that. Yeah. It's like, okay, this guy...
People don't fact check.
Yeah, there's no... The fact that you have to fact check, it was... something I don't think you had to do before, right? Because it was harder to create, like, for example, if you had to publish a book back in the day, you had to find somebody who would publish it, right? And you have to print the materials. There's a lot of infrastructure cost that goes into it, right? So it's not just like, oh, I'm a 15-year-old kid, I want to cause shit, I'm gonna write a fake book. Like,
you can.
You could, but it's gonna cost you a lot of money. Like it's probably not worth it,
With
right?
Amazon, you can print, but you can print a book a day. You can just go. They go over, but like the quality of the content, they're not monitoring.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But like nowadays, you could,
Yeah.
right? But I'm saying in the past, you could. So I feel like in the past, when you were writing information, it was much more likely to be credible, right? Because there was scrutiny and there was a lot of filters along the way that wouldn't allow you to get through.
Yeah.
But now that anybody can put anything,
it's the abuse of freedom.
Yeah. So now it's like like you said, the information is like, oh, I don't know. Like is this true?
This is where freedom and free speech backfire.
Yeah.
Because freedom and free speech are great if you have a population that knows what they mean, and they know that they have to be handled with care. Because they're superpowers. Freedom and free speech are superpowers.
Yeah.
You have to handle them with care, right? You have to have the humility, and I think we all make this mistake, but like you have to at some point be aware, like it's okay to say I don't know. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You know, we don't do that anymore, right? Go on TikTok, 10 seconds. I got it. I got the history of the Ukraine. I got it. We're like, no, like maybe 150 papers in, you begin to get a glimpse of what's happening.
Yeah, it's very complicated.
It's complicated, right? And like, I mean, there's some things that we can like overlook and go, okay, I can have an idea of what's happened. But if you want to get into it, you're gonna have to get into the history of it, right?
Yeah.
No, TikTok. And TikTok is good enough. Why not? TikTok. I mean, the guy's there. He's there. He filmed it. He put it on TikTok. I know what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's like we simplified everything. It's compacted so much, and it's like we can't handle it, man, because we're not a population that's educated. It's like freedom is and free speech. Like they're great things if you have a population that is educated. And because we've been shitting on education for the last, we shit on education. We really do. We think, oh, we don't. Like, yeah, we do. You know, United States is like we're the richest country in history, right? We are below all of the industrialized world. I think we're ahead of Latin America and Sub-Saharan Africa in terms of education. We're a third world country in terms of education. Yet we have like more than everyone else. It's like, and it's like we've excelled in technology. We excel with our universities, best brains in the world in the United States. There's a reason why the Chinese send their kids over here.
Yeah.
You know, over like 50 years, that probably is going to change. We're going to send our kids over there because the way things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if it changes. You know, but we have the best of everything, but I think the most important thing was keeping an educated population, to my opinion, more important than money, more important than anything. I mean, is that you have a population that can read a book and go, this is bullshit, and tell you why, not just because like some news anchor said so, but because you can actually pick the book apart, right? Super hard to do, but it's an effort. It's like, that's what education is, learning how to read and read well. We don't value that because like, no, we good. We got Google, we got, I got Walmart, I got TV, I'm good. And it's like, in a way, it's kind of like we've undermined the foundation of what a country is, because if you have a population that is politically lost, very confused, very confused, like on both ends, you get the one guy that, one piece of Google News is proof of his conspiracy. And then you got the other people that believe that men and women are the same and they should be able to compete together and there's no difference because it's a social construct. Biology is a social construct. Darwin is crazy, like, okay, sure. And, you get like very confused politically. And then you have all these variables, and then you get a population that has no ability on how to filter information. And that's the biggest problem with information. Because unless you have the filters to like, okay, this is bullshit and this is why it's bullshit. And if you develop those filters, what is the purpose of information? Is doing more damage than good then?
Sure.
In some ways, like the age of information is like, okay, this is bad. You should not have, not that we shouldn't have access to information, but like it has to be paired with the ability to interpret it.
Correct. Yeah. Otherwise, like you said, there's just so much information. If you can't discern what's real, what's not, then it's almost like you're saying, it's like kind of bad to have all that information. You don't know how to process it. Yeah. I feel like certain things like this, like for example, like we had that Supreme Court nominee who couldn't define what a woman was, right? Which is
is it two chromosomes? Like X chromosome? Simple. It's simple. It's not
it was
hard.
very weird because she said her answer was, "I'm not a biologist." Like, interesting. You haven't seen?
I did. It was. I don't follow. I stopped following the news.
Gotcha.
I can't. I stopped. I quit.
But essentially, the gist of it was that she was being questioned by, I think it was Senator Blackburn, about Title IX, which was like
Who?
Title IX.
What is that?
Essentially, that's a ruling that was passed, I believe, by Ginsburg, all right, that was to give equality of opportunity to female athletes in colleges, right? Because before, what happened, you had male sports, right, were dominant force in college sports. And female sports were not given the same opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So what they said, okay, with Title IX, essentially for as many male sports you have to have the same amount of female representation. Yeah. And what a true business does, which is what colleges did, is that, you know what, we're not going to add more female sports. It's going to cost money to our budget. Instead, we're just going to cut the male sports that don't make money. Wrestling, water polo, golf.
Wow.
So like wrestling programs got decimated. So
what
like,
a horrible criteria that is.
Wrestlers hated Title IX for a long time.
When was that? I never heard of this. When was
this? Was like late 90s. Yeah.
Okay.
Or it might have been mid 90s, late 90s. I remember.
You see the idea
because
of
in Florida,
quality, there's so many things wrong with what this. I'm just hearing about this first time.
Yeah.
I was like, there's so many things are wrong with that sort of thing.
My home state in Florida, they used to have college wrestling, but like when I grew up,
it got cut.
It got cut. So like that's why I guess it's fortunate. That's how I got into MMA, because otherwise I had no other venue to continue my wrestling career. But so that happened. So she was questioning. It was like Katanya Brown, I mispronounced her name, whatnot. Her opinion on some of the language between men and women, right? Yeah. And then she's like, well, I'm not familiar with the case law. I would have to look at it, which is surprising considering this was from a Supreme Court case.
She doesn't know what a man is.
She would have to review it to be able to give a good interpretation
of what a man is. You know what she's scared? She's scared of her job. She's scared of losing her job. So then that's why she's saying that.
So then the senator went back. He goes, okay, well, can you define to me what a woman is? And she's like, no, I can't. I'm not a biologist. So then that ended the question.
Bring a biologist.
Yeah. So to me, I thought it was funny because one thing is like, oh, so I would have followed up. You're saying that to determine male or female is a biological issue, right? Which would have been a big problem for someone on the liberal side, right? Yeah. And then the second thing is, okay, what are you? And she said, well, I'm a woman. How do you know?
No, thank you. It's just the problem with like when politics permeates science. Yeah. It permeates every field of life, and it's like you gotta learn how to draw those lines, people. Not everything is politics. Please, leave your politics outside of reality. The sun is hot. That's not a social construct. Like there's all things about biology that are not social, but and if you dig, and this is where like, I like Jordan Peterson. Like in some ways, I think he's a little. There's some things I disagree, but like he's got a point about the demise of Marxism, the rise of like post-structuralism, ultra-feminism, third wave of feminism, what do you want to call it. It's like there's a common thread there. There's something, there's a common, it's not always, I don't think it's as thick as he makes it sound, but like there's a common thread there. And it is the idea that that humans they're taught. Like that's what's underneath. If you dig through feminism, if you dig through, behaviorism, post-structuralism, if you keep digging, get to the very bottom of it. There's a core belief they have. They hold it. And they're very serious about it, and they don't question. There's a reason why they hate biology, is that we're all born equal, that we're blank slates, we're white piece of paper, and everything about you is a product of a structure. There are structures in place, and there are people, and this is where this is the connection with Marxism, right? Because that's Marxist thinking, and they go, everything about these structures is written into you because there is a economic dominance by a certain group of people, the dominant class. And then that right there is, they've shaped society. So there's the ones writing the code. So everything you believe is a construct of what people in power have written down. That's Gramsci for you. Who's the other one? There's a few of them. Like that's the whole core of their, like, we are a product of our culture and nothing else. Right, and biologists are going like, not really, and then like Darwinists are going, no, that's pretty inaccurate, and it's no. Then it becomes politicized. So now they're fascists for saying that, right? So what they've done is they've managed to stay in this little bubble of thinking that is at odds with all of science, and they're in universities. They're not the majority, but they exist. They're there. So what happens is they've created this little bubble for themselves, and they are in that bubble. And if you're in a bubble, you're never wrong,
Yeah.
because you're in an echo chamber, right? It's like you're on Facebook and whatever party you happen to like. If you only read your own news, well, shit, you're never wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of what they've created for themselves, even though it's at odds with science. It's at odds with everything we know about human nature. It's at odds with everything we know about our history. It's at odds with everything. But they have convinced themselves that everything's a social construct. So if the majority of white males are rich, or rich, wealthier than other groups, that's clearly a product of a social construct and nothing else. Like then that's sort of like, and there's like some truth that like white people did come out on top due to colonialism. There's no doubt about it. But like not every white person is a victimizer because of it. It's like they get. It's funny because like a lot of their thinking borders on racism. It's very similar to racism in some ways, where you put people into categories and you go, this category right here is bad. So you put everyone like, well, I didn't inherit shit. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I keep hearing this, and the more you think about their ideas, the more it comes down to that idea that we're all born equal. Everything is a social construct. So people have and now it's gotten to the point of absurdity.
Yeah.
Where even like sexual preferences are social constructs.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a social construct.
Well, not even sexual preference, just say sex, period.
Sex or gender, yeah, that's
yeah.
a social, that's nothing to do with biology. I'm like, it's not like, what would happen if that were the case? There would be no human species because we wouldn't have had, and it's like you have to ignore so much of what we know about our history and our biology in order for that sort of thinking to fly. And they have no problems doing it because it's become, and this is where they've lost it. Completely off track, Dave. Completely off track. They go, equality has been achieved in the sense where you have the same rights. That's where justice lies.
Yeah.
Justice lies where Lady Justice has a blindfold, and she's blindfolded, right, for a reason. I don't look left or right. I don't look up or down. It's like, what are the facts, right? And at some point, it becomes a movement of revenge. How do I punish people for, and it becomes revenge. And from that point onwards, it's not more justice. Because once you reach that mark, that's where justice lies. If you pass that, you're not talking about justice anymore. Now you're talking about revenge. And how do you think you're going to build something good with the premise of revenge as your motivation? And there's no wonder that we've created this like social chaos because it's self-polarizing. It's a self-reinforcing mechanism because what happens is you get these guys that go, like for example, you see something in the news that you hate, that pisses you off because it's fucking outlandish, right? And they might, that reinforces your belief on everything on your side, even if it's unquestioned. So this is bad. The opposite of this is good, and that's not always the case.
Yeah, but that's just natural, right? Because
it's natural
because good and bad is comparison.
It's a duality, right? And we've come to frame the world in two spheres, good and bad. And when you do that, or everything you happen to disagree with, is because you're good, of course. Everyone's good. Hitler believed he was an angel. Like everyone believes they're good. So like the opposite of what you believe is clearly bad. And then what that does is like now you can skip critical thinking on your own beliefs, which is incredibly hard to do because there's an emotional attachment and an investment in your beliefs. Imagine how much time you've spent arguing with people at the dinner table with your uncle. And how many books you read or articles or videos you had to watch and the emotional investment in that. And for you to, be able to shit on all that because, or some of it, not all of it, but more importantly, the ability to think critically about what is it that you are criticizing, and what is that you believe in. And this is why it's self-polarizing because you see these guys, they see something they don't like and they get so angry at that reinforces their belief in everything else they already believe in because it's the opposite. Right, so it's the polarization of politics, and I think that's probably the most damaging thing because the crux of politics should be critical thinking, analyze the issue as it is. If you're allowing your emotions or your preconceived notions to interfere with your judgment, well, that's not a good judgment.
Yeah, and it's scary when something that is so simple, like even just like sex, like when you can't say like someone with two X chromosomes is definitively a woman.
It's totalitarianism.
It's up to interpretation. Yeah. That's essentially to me like saying like 1 + 1 = 3 now. Like we can't even agree on anything because like a very simple premise has already been blown out of the water, right? Like how can we not say that? It's one thing like people. There's so many ways of expressing this now, but like sexual orientation is one thing. Okay, whatever. If you're heterosexual, homosexual, but then the other thing is just like biologically, your sex, or you're male or female, right? Like
Yeah.
that shouldn't be like a matter of question. Like we've been pretty good at determining what's a man and what's a woman for like thousands of years, right? Like that wasn't something that was ever confused, you know. But all of a sudden now, like people are saying, oh, like the gender that you were chosen at birth. It's like
Chosen.
It's like what? Like no. He was born with a penis or a vagina, or she was born with a vagina. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
Now, what you want to role play or want to express yourself as, that's a different thing.
Live your life. I don't care. Right, it really is. Yeah.
It shouldn't really matter. But like, let's not confuse something very simple, because like you said, then everything's confusion. And I feel like tinfoil hat going on. Like when politicians try to make stuff like this very confusing, like to what you were saying, like for example, like a guy has a penis and whatnot, and now he says he's a woman, and then we all have to say he's a woman. It's like, I know he's a woman, I know he's a man, you know he's a man, but we're gonna say he's a woman. Because if I can get you to agree to something like that you know is false, I can get you to agree with anything. And that's like the premise of 1984, end of the book, right? It's like we both know a lie, and we're going to say it's true.
It's like we agree with it because it is. And then here's the thing: the reason why the judge doesn't say anything, and this is the problem with our legal system. This is a much bigger problem. Politicians. This is a problem with democracy. In fact, like it's a critique to be made here that is very valid. When we have individuals like a judge or a politician who have their whole livelihood and the investment in their careers are subjected to the majority of decision making of people, right? They are going to sway left or right, forward or back, according to what? The public opinion. You know when I learned this? I mentioned this a few times in this podcast, but like for those of you who haven't listened, for the 8 people watching, you know, when I was in court, you know, for family, a child custody, and I learned that judges have their campaigns paid for by attorneys. And I'm like, wait, what? Because to me, that's like, Lady Justice, what happened to you? Because I used to believe in you. That was like an ideal Lady Justice is blindfolded. Oh shit, she's not blindfolded. And I started realizing, no, that's everywhere. That's not just in family court, that's everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you're a judge, there's a reason why she doesn't open her mouth. Because she's going like this. She's sticking her finger out to see which way the wind is blowing. Is it blowing left or right? And they sway accordingly, right? Unless they have an audience and the audience is big enough, and then they'll stick to that. But if the audience is diminishing, the audience is getting smaller, what is it? Oh, the winds have changed, and they switch positions just the same. So they don't stand for anything. They don't believe in anything, right? And it's the same thing for like politicians and judges, because they're elected. Yeah. They follow this. So if the majority of the population says that you are a homophobe unless you choose to have gay, you have to have gay sex unless you're a homophobe. Dave, you're homophobic. You've never had sex with a man? Clearly you're homophobic. Yeah. And if the majority of people, like, I mean, where do you stop? Yeah. Where does it stop? Because we're going to pass legislation now that where does it stop? I am scared of voicing my opinion. I posted a video of Chappelle on my Instagram the other day. Dave Chappelle was a hero of mine. I think Dave Chappelle is one of the greatest humans to ever walk this earth. You ever watch Patrice O'Neal? He's Patrice O'Neal is.
I've heard some of his bits, but not recently.
He is better than Chappelle. Yeah. But he never played the game. That's why I love him. He fucking never played the game. Apparently, he had like a Comedy Central, like big kahuna, invite him over, and he like didn't show up out of principle for something. Like he's just like that guy, right? Brilliant. But I put something on. And the reason I'm saying this is like, it's almost like I got people messaging me like, you know, like almost like it's almost like it's a police out there. And they're terrifying. It is very totalitarian in a lot of ways because they don't like free speech. They like it unless you happen to say what they agree with, which is what the Nazis believed in too. You know, book burning didn't go for Mein Kampf. Yeah. They went for Karl Marx. And if you're in Stalinist Russia, it was the opposite. They believed in free speech as long as you're reading Marx. Perfectly fine. Just don't read the wrong things, right? And then well, that's not free speech. That's not free speech. That's book burning, right? And we are living a moment of book burning in the United States.
Oh, like, definitely.
You can't.
The whole cancel culture.
It's book burned. I know, and it's what's fascinating about these people is that they have the nerves to accuse other people of being fascists. It's like clearly you know nothing about the history of fascism. Yeah. Clearly, because if you did, you wouldn't be speaking that nonsense. You shut the fuck up, right? Because they don't understand. But I think there's intellectually speaking, there's nothing behind. There's nothing underneath them. It's air. It just crumbles the second you start questioning what is the core of what are they trying to do and what is underneath their belief system. There's nothing there. It collapses because it is flawed to the core, and it's not just from I'm speaking. I mean, you can in any direction you dig, whether it's biology or history or, you know, human universals. You know, it's like human psychology. Any way you want to frame it, like it's very, very flawed. You know, but It is the majority. It's becoming a thing. It is becoming a trend, especially with younger crowd, which is what's going to push legislation in the future.
That's
right?
what's I think I mentioned it
Because
before,
me and you
but
are
I always,
old. Just
I
remember
guess
that.
we were old, right?
We're old men. We're the old white men. So
Well, I always wonder about this because like I'm in that bubble also, right?
yeah, and we all are.
Yeah,
so,
because like all the people I hang out with are martial
Yeah,
artists,
yeah.
and they all think the same,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I don't see the other side, right? The people
Yeah.
who want to be victims or the people who don't want to work. Or
They're
like,
not the majority.
yeah, I don't get to experience that. So like it's odd for me because this seems like massively overrepresented in the online media space,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like even if you watch TV, like now it seems like being a redheaded woman is like a very popular thing. Like if you watch a lot of leads are now redheads. I'm like,
Why?
I don't know.
Diversity?
But I guess, but I'm like, this to be like redheaded is not common, right?
Yeah.
Not at least in the States here, But it seems like a lot of things are being pushed. Like you said, like whether they're trying to normalize things or trying to make everybody feel included or whatnot, but it's like, it's not real. Like people get upset because there's like a movie that doesn't have enough, Asian characters or doesn't have enough black characters. It's like, if we're covering a movie in Africa, chances are most of the characters are going to be black, right? It's just, we're in Africa, right? If we're in Asia, most of them are going to be Asian. Like, and if you would do an Asian movie and you're like, there's not enough white representation. It's like, there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like that's not the subject matter.
It's insane. Like, I call it arbitrary diversity. I was watching Apple TV. I actually just subscribed to Apple TV just to watch this. I was watching it last night, in fact, with my daughters. It is a reenactment of Macbeth, the Shakespeare play, with guess who's playing Macbeth? Did you see it?
No.
Denzel Washington. Macbeth is a Scottish king.
yes.
And he's being played by Denzel Washington, which, by the way, played it well.
I'm sure he did.
But I've seen better versions of Macbeth, but like he played it well, right? Yeah. He got played by Denzel Washington, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm glad Denzel's doing it because A, he's a good actor, and I love him to death. Like, he's one of my favorite actors. Yeah. B, isn't this a fucking case in point? This is like a text case of hypocrisy, and then no one opens their mouth. Yeah. I wouldn't because I don't freaking care. I mean, I don't mind seeing a black Santa Claus. I couldn't care less. It's like it's not important to me. Macbeth is a play at the end of the day, and Santa Claus is not real. Who gives a shit? Yeah. But it's mind-boggling. I think it was an actress that said something about like she was going to play a part of some historical black woman, and she wouldn't play it because she wasn't black enough. And I'm like, wait, what? what does that even mean? Well, this is like I'm not black. Well, it's just kind of cuckoo, man.
Well, this is like a sketch from the Chappelle Show. You remember Al Mooney? He would do like these movie reviews. No. So they were reviewing the Last Samurai. Yeah. And it's Al Mooney, he's a black guy. And he's like talking about. He's like Tom Cruise as the Last Samurai, right? It's like, okay. And then I got a movie idea for you, Hollywood. He's like the last African American on Earth, starring Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
He's like, come on,
Oh man, that is the thing, and I'm okay with that either way because to me, at the end of the day, it's acting. Like
that's the whole point, right? You can play anybody else you want. It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter. But the fact that because it's all about good or bad acting, that is the criteria. Oh my God, like dude, we've gone way over time here, but last one and I'll stop. And if you want, unless you got a point, but and this was in my book. It might not be in the book, but there's an author I've been reading. I went on a tangent. I read a bunch of his books. They're called Harold Bloom. Like he's a literary critic from Yale. I think he died recently, and he's losing his mind because in universities and literary studies, they're removing what he would call high literature, like Cervantes, Shakespeare, Dante, in favor of diversity. These are all white males.
Oh, okay.
Therefore, we need multiculturalism. We need more women, more Asians. And that's the criteria, and that's the problem. Like, your politics really have to be everywhere, don't they? Because the criteria shouldn't be the color of your skin. No. It should be like, oh, well, why is it all males? Because like males were writing in Europe at a time where most people in the world didn't have a pen and paper. Yeah. And that's fucking awful, but that's not my fault. And that's not Shakespeare's fault either. That's just a fact of the circumstance. The majority of the world did not have a pen and paper in hand, or the free time for that matter, actually sit down and write because there was an audience there that wanted to watch your plays. Those are historical circumstances that led to greatness,
Yeah.
combined, coupled with genius, right? Genius plus historical circumstances. None of that matters. It's all social construct, and it's like part of the framework set forth by the dominant structure, yada, yada, yada. Here we are, we have to replace it with people with, when does it stop? We wouldn't have
Right.
like more red
Essentially,
hairs in the NBA. Like, when does it stop?
right. Essentially, it's like a reverse racism, right? Like you're now picking people
Yeah.
based on their race,
And it shouldn't matter.
and not based on their merits.
Yeah, on their
right?
merits, yeah.
Right. So like ideally, like who do you want to be your instructor in martial arts who might potentially save your life? The most famous YouTuber, which might be a Logan Paul, or do you want the guy who's a black belt world champion who's a very skilled coach?
Yeah.
I mean, that shouldn't be the criteria. Like, the more they try to divide people by like, okay, you're white, you're black, you're Asian, and then now you're white. Like, what part of white are you? European white? Australian?
Who cares,
like,
man? Like, unbelievable.
This,
yeah.
This is not something that people
Who
should
gives a
care
shit?
about. Like, if you're a man, you're a woman, or whatever.
You know what? Like how? Like this? Like some of this is so erratic. The way this is why I see it. Maybe I'm crazy. Everyone else is right. I'm saying like maybe we should get some short people in the NBA because everyone in the NBA is tall. No, seriously. I want diversity in the NBA. I want more short people in the NBA. Too many tall people. Like, where does this start? I want taller people in gymnastics, Dave. Because people in gymnastics are too short. Because gymnasts are short.
We need some size 10s in there.
Yeah, we need some 7 feet tall gymnasts there for diversity. Like, when does what is it what is the point of any of this? Because it's certainly not correct in errors of the past, right? It's not correct in injustices of colonialism. It certainly isn't. It is certainly not creating justice. It's just pissing everyone off because it's fucking madness. There's no other way to describe this, right? So what is the long-term purpose of any of this? And I swear, I try to see it. I've been a liberal my whole life. I can't see what they're aiming at. I'm like looking like, because I remember like, okay, women should be able to vote, equal rights, black equal rights across the board. I'm like, hell yeah, like who'd be against that? Yeah, gay people should get married, of course. Oh, since I was a child. But at some point, it's like, whoa, wait, what happened? And it's not about justice anymore. It's about, this is my take on it.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with revenge.
It was listening to, it was like a counterpoint type thing where they asked somebody, like men shouldn't compete in women's sports, or biological men, the terminology, shouldn't be able to compete in female sports. And the person defending it was saying like, well, the way I see it is I don't want to hurt one group over the other, right? And they're like, if you have like a trans male and you deny him the ability to compete in the sport, or a trans woman rather, then like you're hurting that population. You're saying they can't do it. And it's like, well, but then you realize you're also hurting all the women now because
it's split though. The movement is split though because of that. Yeah.
Right, because now these women are losing spots to compete in, and they're at a massive disadvantage. So like, who are you saying you're gonna do the less harm to? Because like, how many trans people are there? Yeah. There's a small fraction,
what is the definition of freedom and rights? I mean, how do we the classic definition? My freedom or my rights end when what?
Infringes and
when yours begin, right?
Yeah.
And to me that's still a good. It's a simple but a good definition of it, right? Like, it's not fair on women. It's gonna be the end of. If it keeps. The good news is it's not a lot. It's just that but if it became, it would be in the women's sport. It's not gonna be, but. What was that swimmer, Leah Thomas? She was like 480 something in the man.
As a male.
And then she beat the Olympic gold medalist or something in college, or the silver medalist or whatever it was. And like,
she won.
What else do you need to know? She's like a foot taller. It's like, what else do you need to know, people?
But and her time got worse, right? Which like she went. I think she was like 7 seconds slower, right, when she was as a man. But still, that was fast enough to beat everyone else. It's just not fair, right? Yeah. And it's weird. Apparently, because I was hearing an explanation of this, the NCAA essentially allows like the smaller swimming federations to decide what the guidelines are for like if a trans athlete can compete or whatnot. So like they pretty much said like they have to be tested. I think like 4 weeks before competition
for testosterone,
and it could be up to double of what a woman's normally is.
And this is
which is, there's no time stipulation of how long you have to be or anything like that. So this guy was swimming 2 years ago as a man. He's on some hormone therapy, and now like testing 4 weeks before. So like, there's nothing saying like he didn't void up like right before.
Even
you know?
if they got tested the day of, before and after,
Yeah.
no possibility of cheating, okay?
Yeah.
Let's say that were the case.
Yeah.
Testosterone is one indicator.
Yeah.
It is one metric.
Yeah.
It is not, let me say this because these people don't understand this, like very clearly.
Yeah.
Testosterone is one metric. It is not the only metric amongst men and women. Muscle fiber density, bone density, lung capacity,
Yeah.
red blood cells, the size of your heart, height in swimming is huge.
Yeah, yeah. it's
Height
enormous.
is huge.
Yeah, it's the
Okay,
reason Michael
the-
Phelps is the.
And the reason why you don't see people that are 4 feet tall winning Olympic gold medals in swimming.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Anatomy matters. Try to explain that to these people. It's like, oh my God, you're stupid. Your politics have made you stupid. There's no other explanation.
It's frustrating. I think it's, but I'm hoping, like you're saying, it's true that it's starting to turn, because I don't know, for whatever reason, men are highly offended at this. Like, I see it. I'm not a female swimmer. I have no
Attachments
I
to
have no
swimming.
horse
Yeah.
in this race.
Yeah.
But it bothers me to no end, because it's like it's an injustice, right?
Because
it's like
it
somebody,
doesn't stop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
you got to
it-
put a stop to it.
someone's
point, yeah.
exploiting it. But women, I think, weren't speaking out because of what you're saying. They were scared. Because if they're the one that's like the one who took second place defended her, right? Or him, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Wait, so you said it was defended the winner?
Leo Thomas, yeah.
No way.
But before he won the race, or she won, I'm going to get in trouble now.
Yeah.
Before Leo Thomas won the race, they were saying, "Oh, like it's good that they have a spot to compete,
Yeah,
in,"
yeah.
right?" But I mean, if you don't speak up for yourself, then you're going to get run over. And like the only people who can stop this from happening are women. If,
Yeah,
if all the
I
women
know,
athletes-
100%,
If all the
because you
female athletes
can't,
step
'cause-
in and say, "You know what, we're not going to
'cause-
race," like what my dad was saying would have been a good thing. It's like when they start the race, nobody jump in the water.
You don't get to have an
Yeah.
opinion, Dave. You're a white male. Shut up. You're
Yeah.
a straight white male. And I was having an argument with like a feminist friend of mine, and I'm like, can you think of a situation, just to go show how crazy, how Lady Justice is no longer blindfolded and facts no longer matter.
Yeah.
A situation where a white male, a straight white male, can be a victim, and she stopped. She goes, no,
Yeah.
never. I'm like, okay, so it's the death of justice.
Yeah.
Lady Justice is no longer blindfolded.
It's-
It's the end.
yeah, it's-
If you, I mean, luckily, most people don't agree with you. That's the saving grace.
Because otherwise, she would be a sexist and a racist. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, we got to stop it before the police comes after us.
I get swatted.
The PC fucking army of idiots. I mean, I can go on for another 3 hours about this, man. Like
It's frustrating because
it's the beginning of this. This is bad.
I feel like in some people it's hijacks like what might be. I understand the need, like people want them to be included, and I get it. You know, like they should be in some capacity, but like sports are made to be fair.
We'll compete with the men.
Yeah, because
Simple.
if we just made one division, just everyone race in one division, guess what's going to happen? There's not going to be any women in there.
Yeah.
You know, because
To
all
be
the men.
eliminated from sports.
Yeah.
You know how the Greeks define sports? Contest amongst equals.
There you go. Right.
They invented sports, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a good criteria. It's a good standard to uphold.
Yeah, you know, and for me, I think it's great that women compete in sports, and I want them to, on a fair footing. So there's a reason why we have a men's division and a women's division, and in sports that matters a lot, we have weight classes. You know, because of a big dude, it's not going to be fair to fight a little dude, but we still want little dudes to fight. So we got to make a division for them too. You know, so the solution might be there should be a trans division. If that's something that's
create their own, or
Yeah.
I mean, there's or like at some point, like if you make that call, you gotta like, okay, that's the price you pay for not competing in sports, or you gotta compete with the men.
or you can be with them.
Like, I don't think anything against it. I honestly, man, if some
It happens in
trans
Thailand,
walked
yeah.
into, exactly, it happens in Thailand.
Yeah, the lady boys, they fight.
And no
yeah.
one, you know what's funny? There's no prejudice. Like, no one's like, go on, go. You want to fight? You're a fighter? You go. I don't care if you're going to be on the receiving end or the giving end of sex tonight with whoever you're going to have sex with. I don't care. You're here to fight, right?
Yeah.
Well, fight. And I respect that. And I really wouldn't bother me at all if we had a transgender whatever in jiu-jitsu. Come to my gym. I've had trans. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to like, I'm not okay with like someone with an enormous biological advantage, and it's not small, dummies.
Yeah.
It's not small.
It's big, yeah.
It is big. I mean, Ronda Rousey is a dominant female. She was incredible. You think she'd like make it to the top 50 amongst men?
There's a lot of
Like,
examples of this
like,
already. Like in
come on.
various sports, between tennis, for example, the Williams sisters got crushed by like this ranked 200
Yeah.
male tennis player in one afternoon when he was drunk. You know, they have like the world champion soccer females getting beat by middle schoolers.
Did I send you that? I was just reading about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
sent it to South. No, that was okay.
Yeah.
That was happened in Brazil.
Yeah.
They had. That's funny you say that. They had the women's national soccer team, and Brazilian national soccer team is not bad, right? It's not the best one when it comes to women, but it's
Pretty
top
good.
5. It's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good. And they couldn't find a team to play with them. They got these 14, 15-year-old boys to play with the women's national soccer team that was going to represent Brazil in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
The boys won 6-0.
Yeah.
One of the comments read, "I think we should pay them equally." And it was just like a mic drop kind of moment. You got to pay them the same, right? And it's my point is like at some point you got to draw the line between like what is equality, how do we, because it's not equal. It's not equal. Should we pay the 14-year-old boys the same as the women, the national team, because they're better? Clearly, they're better soccer players. Like, where does it, like, and this is why they don't think about the fact that nothing in nature is equal.
No.
There's not a single leaf from a tree that is equal to the leaf next to it. There's nothing in nature that is equal. But it's like this distortion of reality in favor of what they perceive good to be, what they think good is, what they think kindness is. And it is so incredibly at odds with everything we know about people, history, nature, that it's just like, it's just never going to work.
Yeah. If the things were equal, evolution failed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Like, there is advantages even amongst people in the same weight class, but the idea of sport is we're trying to make it as equal as reasonably possible.
The way the Greeks define it as contest amongst equals. I define it as contest amongst approximate equals, right? Because it's never equal.
No.
You know, like I don't know what John Jones has inside his body, right? As far as like
some floating picograms, but
red blood cells, muscle fiber, like reflex. But like clearly, he's at an advantage.
Oh, for sure.
You know how much I hate on him? 0. I'd use it too if I were him. You think if I could swim as fast as Michael Phelps does, I wouldn't? Hell yeah, I would.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that everyone has to win at the end. It's just like there's nothing good about it. That's the bigger issue here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it too is that people have the idea that the only purpose behind competition is to win.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And to me, it's not.
It's not.
I think someone who knows more, the idea of competition is to do your best.
It's to grow.
Yeah, and because you do your best, all those things happen. You grow, you learn, and if you're good enough, you win, right? But winning is a consequence, right? And
so is
a lot of people think, oh no, competition is just about winning. Is it?
No, it
because
isn't.
when we have if I told you, like my brother used to do this, he has this crystal ball analogy. We'll end on this one. I know we're going over. And he looks at a competitor and he goes, I'm looking at the crystal ball, and Robert, tomorrow you're going to lose. Do you still compete or do you drop out?
Yeah.
Everybody I've ever done that to, I compete. Why? Because they want to know how. How did I lose?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or like, I don't believe you. I'm going to prove you wrong, right? Like a competitor is going to want to compete. So if winning was already told that was impossible and you still compete, obviously it wasn't about winning then. Yeah. It was about doing your best. Right?
Yeah. And growing in the process and deriving a joy and pleasure from the effort itself. Like I say this, like the hard work is the reward. It's sort of like my motto in the gym. No one fucking agrees with me, but like I really think so, man. Like I look back at my jiu-jitsu journey and you can literally, like I could lose every single medal I have and it wouldn't change how I feel about my journey.
No, absolutely. I've lost almost all my medals because they got stolen.
I lost a ton of them too. Like
I only have... I think 2 of them. My 80cc bronze, and I have 1 gold, 1 from Grapples Quest. That's all. I lost all the other ones. It doesn't matter. I probably lost those. I don't know where they're at.
Yeah, like exactly. But it doesn't, like, even if you did lose, it doesn't change your perception of self, of your journey, or it doesn't detract from the value of the effort. And that's what people who don't compete don't get. Only someone who actually throws themselves in the fire understands that. Like, you know, but you have to throw yourself in the fire to get it. Otherwise, it's just like, it's all about winning, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, Dave, this is a pleasure. This is our longest podcast ever. This is what happens when we get fired up over.
Oh, yeah.
It is. But I'm not even sure if we can get. I mean, luckily we don't have 1 million listeners, otherwise we'd probably be in trouble. But this is the advantage of being what's the word? Like not being like Joe Rogan, I guess. Like, yeah, you can't open your mouth. I mean, it's got to be like a great and a horrible thing to be a guy like him, because you gotta like imagine having to like monitor what you say every fucking hour of the day.
What's the one thing I think that he does?
I it'd to be exhausting.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll try to make our next one not in 6 months.
Not in 6 months. Less time. I always have fun with this. This is always a good exercise. I get to vent. I feel like this is therapy. You guys notice I'm calm and I feel like I've gotten it out.
It's a safe space.
It's a safe space. I get to speak my mind. You know. Thank you. No, thank you guys. Thank you everyone. And yeah, see you guys next time.